Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast. I am your host, Freddie Hall. I have Andrew Manning and Adam Martin back with me again for this summer series that we are doing, the future of the franchise. It's going to be our summer series that we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at all the first round draft picks that happened in the 2021 draft. So we're going to look at how they'll affect the team, what's going to happen in the future with them, how they'll integrate, and maybe some team questions as well about that. Hopefully, we're going to have fans, fellow podcasters, media reps from the US, from the UK. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going to try and do 2 teams a week, so that'll be about 16 weeks. Try and get them on as podcasts and videos on YouTube as well. Obviously, we are very new to YouTube, so please get your friends and fellow NFL fans to subscribe to us. We're doing pretty well at the minute. We had some really nice feedback, but we're only going to try and improve and get better as we go along. And obviously, when we talk about the future of the franchise, I think it has to start with this guy, the face of the 2021 draft, Trevor Lawrence. And we have on with us today Sam from Jacksonville, Florida, host of the AFC South and Battle podcast, who's a passionate Jaguars fan. She's going to be on to chat about Trevor Lawrence, and hopefully you'll be back to talk on about Travis Etienne as well later in the month.
Yes, definitely, because that was the shocker. The first one was not a shocker. That one was a shocker. Yes.
Well, that was what's going to be my first question. Obviously, what was your reaction to the Trevor Lawrence pick? It was obviously the worst kept secret for about 3 years that Trevor Lawrence would be going number 1 to whoever was the number 1 pick. But was the New York Jets for the whole time of the season, and then the Jets their own pick. You guys swoop in and take Trevor Lawrence. So you were at the stadium, weren't you, when with the draft party? So what was the feeling of finally we've got him, we've got the pick, he's here, he's a Jacksonville Jaguar player?
Well, so actually the feeling came from even before that moment at the draft party. Obviously we were awful. Like that's not news. So once we realized that we were going nowhere, the whole tanking for Trevor started coming out, and it was almost a head-to-head with us and the Jets for the longest time. And there was probably more energy at that last Jaguars-Bears game than there was at the draft party, because it's the first time I've been to a game and we all cheered for the opposing team. Okay. Every time the Bears made a touchdown, everybody cheered. Bears fans would be looking at us like, are you crazy? What is happening? And finally they kind of like got it. And the Jets were playing at the same time we were. So we lost the game, and then the Jets won theirs, and that secured the tank. And there's actually a video on my Instagram where Jaguars fans are freaking out in the parking lot, going Jets, Jets, just like cheering the Bears, cheering the Jets. Everybody's so happy we got Trevor Lawrence. So, that was January. Fast forward to the draft party, the moment we've all been waiting for. And actually, from a TV standpoint, you guys couldn't see it, but we actually saw inside his living room before they actually announced the pick. So they showed his living room. Everybody started going crazy. And then the minute they made the official announcement, Roger Goodell made the official announcement, they had fireworks. Everybody's just freaking out. And of course we all knew, right? We all knew that he was coming, but just to have it, actually grasp it, because the Jaguars like to do Jaguar things, and you just never know. But it was there, and it was exciting. So
was there any part of you at all that thought that Urban Meyer might go for the Ohio quarterback, just for the connection?
Yes, and I actually made a comment on one of my live feeds. I actually brought a Texans fan with me, Dylan Stieslick. He's on the AFC South Fan Battle podcast with me. And I made a comment to him on the live feed. I said, if we pick anybody other than Trevor Lawrence, I will walk out of here, and I will not renew my season tickets. Yes, there's always that thought. And with that relationship that they had prior, I was like, oh, please no, because you just never know. Never know.
And sort of going forward with that, so what do you think impressed you the most with Trevor Lawrence while he was at Clemson?
So, I mean, obviously his athleticism, which I'll get into, but you know what I love the most is his confidence in general. He already was speaking like an NFL quarterback. He was getting up and standing up for his teammates, with Black Lives Matter and diversity and being there for your teammates. And he wasn't too afraid to get up in front of the media and say something. He wasn't too arrogant. I love that he already looks like a leader. Besides that, I mean, he threw 17 interceptions, 90 touchdowns in his college career. That's insane. The guy is athletic as all can be. He can read a defense. He's confident. He's tall, which everybody will disagree with me on this one, but our offensive line isn't the best. He needs to be able to throw over it. Okay. So I'm just super excited, mainly because we've had so many busts in first round quarterbacks. You know, we had Blake Bortles, we've had Blaine Gabbert, which awful. So it's exciting to get somebody who is so open and so much loves the game, and it's just, I can't wait. This is a great time to be a Jaguars fan. I love it.
Yeah, totally agree with all of that. I mean, like when you look at like stuff that he does away from the field, because obviously it's too easy to see how good he is on the field. When you look about what he's done with like the work that he did at the Manning Passing Academy with all the youngsters, and you know, like you say, his interviews, he does come across talking about the team and his teammates and praise for the team. He just generally really looks real strong as a leader, and like that's massive. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him throughout his whole college career. So like such an aura, and like you say, like someone for people to look up to. So it's got to be massive.
Exactly, and that's huge, you know, because you know, even yesterday we had Rashad Jennings on our podcast, and I said to him, you know, you don't find that anymore. These kids, they see these professional athletes, and I'm sure it's the same for any sport. They see these professional athletes and they think, you know, especially the hot-headed, arrogant ones that we all hear about, right? And those are mainly the ones you hear. And they think, man, in order to get in the NFL, I just need to be like that guy, you know? So it's nice, and it's a breath of fresh air to have like a humble, decent person who is so confident in the way they feel to be a role model for kids. That's huge to me. As a mom, I'm a mom as well. So, you know, that's huge to me.
I mean, obviously, we all feel that he's definitely going to be capable of doing all the off-field stuff, and he's going to be great for that. And he's shown that he can do that at Clemson. But when it comes to actually coming into the NFL, playing in the NFL, do you actually feel that like Urban Meyer is going to be the guy to integrate him into the NFL?
Yeah, so it's tough, right? Because they're both coming into the NFL at the same time.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, it's not the same football game. College football and NFL football is a totally different ball game. We've seen it in the past with many athletes, many quarterbacks. Tim Tebow, which sensitive subject right now because you know, we're talking about signing him, but Tim Tebow, same thing. Tim Tebow played with Urban Meyer at Florida. He was a Heisman winner. He was the All-American, you know, quarterback, and he didn't make it in the NFL because he's a running quarterback, and running quarterbacks, as we know, like Lamar Jackson is one, and he's great. But for the most part, it's scary because they have a higher chance of being hurt, and you're dealing with the best of the best. So is he going to be the one to integrate? No, or yes and no. You know, Urban Meyer gets a lot of flack. You constantly see it. It's like, oh, well, you know, Nick Saban didn't make it, so Urban Meyer's not going to make it. Well, on the opposite side of the coin, look at Pete Carroll. He did the same. I mean, you can give many examples of this, but I think there's a difference between mind and heart. When you're dealing with college, you have a lot more control. You're not dealing with millions of dollars of somebody else's money, and the lines can get misconstrued there, you know. And I think that with that, though, he does have a team behind him, a bunch of people. They have academies, they have people to come in and kind of help Trevor with that, to make sure that that doesn't get misconstrued. And same with Meyer too. I think Meyer needs that. He needs that guidance. They're not used to losing. Meyer's not used to losing. Trevor Lawrence isn't used to losing. The Jaguars organization, we're used to losing. But our front office is trying to make a change because of that by doing what they're doing now. So that's kind of, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I you know, like I said, I am happy that it's not just Urban Meyer is doing this. He does have lots of people behind him who have been in the NFL who can help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about them clashing, isn't there, with how aggressive Urban Myers is and how laid back and chilled Trevor Lawrence comes across. So there could be one to overcome. What what weaknesses do you feel Trevor Lawrence has, and what do you think his challenges are going to be in his first year?
So once again, losing. I think that when you go from playing with a team, which is one thing I like about him, he's not the reason why Clemson went. His mindset, it's like the team has won, not he has won. But when you go from playing with a team that wins all the time, or coaching a team that wins all the time, to losing, I'm afraid that that's going to be. I just hope that his mindset stays the same. I'm humble, accept defeat, like let's crush it. He came out with that interview. It was like, I don't want a chip on my shoulder. I enjoyed that about him, but I hope that he maintains his positivity, because from what I understand, it can be rough when you lose, or if you're the guy who messes up. Rashad Jennings said yesterday, even your food tastes different in the cafeteria if you lose, so I just hope, that when you take somebody who's not used to losing and throw them into a terrible franchise, I don't know. That's my biggest fear right there.
I know when I looked at it and I was like, this is a tough question to ask someone when he's such a good leader and he's such great NFL qualities and things. I literally had on my list, I was going, living up to expectation might be his only weakness. I mean,
yeah,
that's all the only thing I could pick from him.
Is that the problem? Is maybe one of the biggest thing he is going to have to overcome is the Jags franchise hasn't been great in a long time. I mean, you had that run in 2018 where he went to the NFC 2017-2018 NFC Championship. But he's going to go into that culture where maybe it's not so much of a winning culture as he's been a part of. It's also the Jags have never really had in recent years as talented a quarterback as he is. And that could even be overwhelming in itself, but for a franchise, couldn't it? What would be your thoughts on that? Do you think there is that the weight of expectation could be maybe, we don't know if it's going to be maybe too much, but it's definitely going to be an obstacle for him to overcome, surely. And also, there's got to be something on the Jacksonville Jaguars back office saying, well, we've never had a guy this talented before. We can't mess this up because we've never had someone who is so good, well, historically so good in college. So we're going to need to help him as much as we can, right?
Yeah, and I think that, we've seen that with like Ramsey, right? Ramsey would lose the game and he'd cry on a bench. I think that they're trying to do with Trevor Lawrence anything that they can to make him comfortable. Not that Etienne wasn't a bad pick, but I think a lot of it swayed on his comfort as well. As far as like, what was the first part of that question? You'll have to repeat that.
So is the weight of expectation of him, is that going to be the biggest thing to overcome, or is it going to be more the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise having someone this talented that they haven't had before, but that's going to be more of a thing to overcome?
Yeah, so we kind of saw that with Gardner Minshew too, right? I mean, Gardner Minshew was our second string, picked him up in the 6th round. Wasn't expecting to be anybody. Nick Foles, 11 snaps into the game, breaks his clavicle, out for the season, $88 million contract, down the drain. And Gardner Minshew came in and he looked hopeful. And I think that, not that I think he was ever going to be, I've never sat here and never thought that Gardner Minshew was even going to be our starter forever. But a lot of people did. You have very surface level people who watch football and that's it. They don't actually like break down the games, watch the tapes, things like that. But, I think a lot of Gardner Minshew's breakdown was from pressure as well. I'm hoping just by watching interviews with Trevor Lawrence and things like that, that he's not going to put that on himself, because he's such a person that says, we are a team. We won this because we are a team. I'm hoping that he takes that and translates that into, we lost as a team, not I lost. And if I could give him advice, it'd be like, please stay off the internet. Don't read what everybody writes. Half of them don't know what they're talking about. We got internet GMs, you know. So yeah, that's a lot. And it's, you know, the pressure. But I think he'll be okay with that. As far as
I think he's been in the spotlight for what, 5 years, from high school to college. This is not it's a new spotlight being in the NFL, but he's not new to the spotlight, is he? He's been talked about for 5 years in high school and into college. So really, he always knew he was going to be maybe a top 5, top 10 pick, and then obviously got closer. He becomes the number 1 pick, and knew that 2 years away that was going to happen. So he has ample time to prepare himself to do that. So really, it does lie more on the Jags franchise. We'll talk a bit more about Trevor Lawrence, but I will just revisit a little thing, just because I saw how your face turned a little bit with it. So what is the feeling with old Tim Tebow returning to Florida? Because Andrew loved Tim Tebow at college. You were massive with him at the Gators, weren't you, Andrew? You loved him. What is the feeling going around? Because it seems like he has signed. That's what the reports are saying. But, you know, how are you feeling on that?
So, yeah, it's not set in stone, but it's might as well be, right? You might as well just build a statue outside the stadium for him, because this is my thing with it. I'm a Gators fan, believe it or not. So you see me, everybody sees me scowl or hears me talk badly about it, and it's not that, but it's Tim Tebow has been a rumor in the Jaguars franchise since I was in high school. I'm the same age as Tim Tebow. Okay. So the people around here, they love the Gators. They love FSU. Like I live in the South. Okay. I'm sure you can tell by my accent. I got the Southern American accent. Okay. People in the South love college football. He's been talked about for so long. And then when we didn't draft him, actually, I remember going to the game when we played the Broncos and 2010. And there were so many women in general there with Broncos Tim Tebow jerseys on. So, and it has always been said, sign Tim Tebow, sign Tim Tebow, sign him, sign him, sign him. 2011, Shad Khan bought the team. I think by then he was just kind of further removed. Like he owned the team, but he was more or less following what everybody else thought. And he didn't quite know the history maybe at that point in time. Tim Tebow was out of the league in 2012. I'm not stupid. I know this is for marketing. Okay. I know that this is to put people's rear ends in the seats. I don't think we're playing in London, or if we are, it hasn't been announced yet because of COVID last year and everything's still kind of up in the air. A lot of our revenue, I think 11% of our revenue comes from that London game. So I think that this is a marketing ploy. I think that it won't go any further than him being on the practice squad or third string. And it's more or less kind of like a slap in the face, I think, to people who aren't privileged. And I'm not saying white privilege. I'm just saying privilege, like in general, because he's getting a second chance in the NFL as a tight end when he was trying to make it, when he was actually with the Patriots. They wanted him to play tight end. Bill Belichick asked him to play tight end. They said, in order to make this work, you have to play tight end. And he didn't want to do it. He was too proud then. So now you're okay playing if Urban Meyers asks you to play. So I hate that for people that don't get that chance. You know, you hear stories of people living in their car and walking onto a practice field, and all of a sudden they're professional athletes. It's like, I don't want to hear that story. Tim Tebow is a great guy. Don't get me wrong. He's great role model. We have that, you know, and also I kind of hate that too for Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence is new to this team. He's got all this hype around him, well-deserved hype. And now it's like, oh, but Tim Tebow. And I even turned my Twitter bio to say I'm identifying as 24 again because Tim Tebow is on my team. It's crazy to me.
Adam, Andrew, your thoughts?
I'd just be really surprised. It's a shame bringing someone like Tebow in. Personally, there's lots of young kids that are desperate to try and get into the NFL. And you've got a guy who he's not a tight end. You know, he isn't. He's never trained as one. So I think it would be like you say. Hopefully, it is a marketing ploy. Hopefully, he doesn't like come back as a tight end, because I just think there's so many young kids that deserve the shot.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And like you said, he's never had the training as a tight end, but now he's willing to do it. That's what bothers me the most. Like, you were asked to do it. You had the chance to do it. You had the chance to play under one of the greatest. I hate to say it. Hold on. It's gonna hurt me physically to say this. You had the chance to play under one of the greatest coaches and franchises in the NFL. Okay, I recovered. And you declined it because you were too proud and you wanted to play quarterback. Now all of a sudden you've been out of the spotlight, you've played in the MLB, done your thing, and you're like, I'm bored. Hey, Urban. They're actually neighbors. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, I know that.
But they literally live next door to each other. Trent Baalke
better,
bought a house in the same. Yeah, Trent Baalke bought a house in the same exact neighborhood. So it's like, what did he do? Walk over like, hey, can I borrow some sugar? Yeah, sure. Hey, by the way, while I'm here, you got some space? Like, I hate that. Like he said, you got so many kids, young kids. They're like, they've tried, they've worked out, they've done everything. And like, you know, I just hate that he just gets to walk on. And to segue off that, not to keep talking, but I do keep seeing the narrative about Colin Kaepernick, and I want to clear one thing up about that because it has been all over the internet over here. Well, Colin Kaepernick didn't get a chance to play. At the time that Colin Kaepernick was going to go back into the league, his demands did not fit what we could give him at that time. So this isn't a Jaguar problem. I'm just putting this out there. Colin Kaepernick isn't a Jaguar problem. It's a league problem, but Tim Tebow is probably going to be on the practice squad and make $100,000 in a year. Colin Kaepernick wanted millions. There's a huge difference. So I wanted to clarify that for everybody who keeps talking about it.
Me and Andrew were talking about it actually just before you guys all came on, and we were saying immediately, like, well, everyone's saying, why isn't Colin Kaepernick signed to a team then? We were like, well, look at the facts. Tim Tebow's coming back as a tight end. He'll get no money. He's old. Kaepernick is a 32-year-old quarterback who was mobile, probably not mobile anymore, hasn't played in that long. And when you look around the league, actually, every team has a starting quarterback and a pretty capable backup quarterback. So there really is he hasn't got a market. Like, there's a lot of this is obviously a massive bound of issues to go all in on, but that's one skimming the surface of it. And what we're saying earlier is Tebow has that link with Meyer. He's going to be a tight end. He's going to get paid nothing and probably will never play. And he's a marketing guy. That he's get bums on seats. That's what he's doing. So exactly. let's not start comparing the two because it's just, I don't think that's accurate at all.
And I believe that Colin Kaepernick got shafted from the league.
Oh yeah,
I believe that. I'm just saying the narrative now that the Jaguars specifically shafted him. If everybody was to look back at the time, what he was asking for and what we could accommodate, there's no way.
Yeah.
Not to mention that we're a huge military town. So we have 3 Navy bases in our general area. So yeah, we could never accommodate that contract that he wanted.
We'll move on to what you were saying a moment ago about the London games, actually. And obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars, as soon as you say that name to any NFL UK fan anyway, simultaneously goes with you guys playing over here at Wembley as a staple for since 2013. You've played a game here every year. You played 7 times, actually, 3 wins, 4 losses. You quite enjoy coming over here. Like you were saying earlier about before we came on to recording about the Baltimore Ravens win. There was an agreement to have 2 games last year, obviously back-to-back home games here, but that obviously didn't happen due to COVID. It actually has been in the Athletic today announced that Atlanta and Jacksonville will be hosting home games at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Source, admittedly. Okay. I'm getting this off WhatsApp groups of other different UK fans and podcasters. There could be absolutely no validity to this, but it is being reported early that Jacksonville, if it can go ahead, will come over. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things. That makes sense.
Normally, they would have it makes sense. Normally, they would have our schedule out by now. I don't ever remember it taking this long for our schedule to come out. And I know we added Mexico City too as a NFL spot. So that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure in the article it said that it would be 2 games in London. And Mexico City wouldn't do one this year. I think because of how backward it is with how many vaccines they can get, vaccinations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's quite rife, whereas over here we're very forward of it. We're getting quite a lot of vaccinations done. But anyway, on beside the point. So obviously there's been rumours for years and years that Jacksonville Jaguars are going to move over to the UK, and things like the games are more focused over here, having 2 home games. Obviously, Shad Khan, the owner of also Fulham, the football team over here. I mean, the problem here in the UK is we take it all very seriously that might happen. However, whenever we see the US media about American football or Jacksonville or things like that, we never get mentioned in the UK. So is it all in our heads that this would ever happen? Is it ever rumored in Florida? Is it ever discussed? Is it? Are you angry about it? Sad about it? Would you agree with it? Okay, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I hear that Fulham is the Jaguars of the UK.
They just got relegated.
Yeah.
like yesterday from the Premier League. Yeah. So they're not doing
they did get kicked out.
Yeah, they've gone down to the next division now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well. So I one of our guys that's active in our Facebook group, he's a Titans fan, and he told me that. He's from Scotland. He's like, oh yeah, they're off. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so the London thing. So you guys hear rumors that they're moving there?
We hear rumors every year.
But so I asked because we hear those rumors too. But this is my thing with it. Would I be mad if they completely moved there? Absolutely. I'm from Jacksonville. My dad started taking me in 1995. I was 9 years old. I love this team. My kids are named after this team. Most my friends and family don't even put the correlation together, but my kids' names are Jackson, just like the mascot, and London from the 44-7 win in London over the Ravens. I am a diehard Jags fan. Of course I'd be upset. Do I understand the need to have games in London? Yes. For the moment. So I actually worked with the Jaguars, and they explained a lot of the reason why. Am I allowed to report this? I don't know. I'm going to anyway. What are they going to do? Anyway, so they're branching off. The stadium that we play in at home in Jacksonville is actually publicly owned. It's owned by the city of Jacksonville. So we rent it. We renewed a lease. The Jaguars renewed a lease till 2030. So we know we're safe till 2030. Shad Khan just was trying to build this huge complex. In it, he wanted this loan. It was going to be like $56 million, 0% interest over 50 years or something ridiculous. Like he would be long gone. But he has invested a lot of money, of his own money, into our stadium. Our stadium was originally built for the Gator Bowl. Of course, we have Florida, Georgia here. So our market compared to the size of our stadium, that's why we used to have a lot of blackouts and stuff. Our market is a lot smaller than the size of our stadium. We would have tarps, things like that. So they actually lowered the capacity because the NFL requires a certain amount of ticket sales by percentage of seats available, which isn't fair when you're playing in somebody else's stadium technically. So they put the pools in, they lowered some of the, killed the bowl down some, and they actually built it back up with bleachers for Florida, Georgia. And then they added on an amphitheater. So I don't believe, plus not to mention when he acquired the team, the net worth was like under $1 billion, and now it's like 2-point-something billion. It's like 2.5 times itself in net worth. I don't believe that somebody would take something and basically dump a bunch of money into it just to pick up and move it. I also don't think logistically, as far as like, how would you play those games with the time change, flying back and forth? I do know that like the Jaguars playing there more originally, from what I understood, he was going to buy Wembley because he wanted to basically own the stadium, but not only that, own the rights to all the London games. And I don't blame him for that because that was his idea, essentially, right? To have that game in London, and the Jaguars were going to be there. And then all these other teams were like, hold on, wait, we can make a bunch of money too. And so they started doing it as well, but we're not as low in revenue as people like to make us out to be. If you look at somebody like the Chargers, even Miami at one point was lower than us. So we have the capability. And I think he understands now that really in order to get these fans in the seats, you're going to have to win, first of all. But my generation, who grew up watching the Jaguars. We are a transplant city. Like I said, we have a lot of military around us. My generation that grew up watching the Jaguars that now has children, and we want to take the kids to our games because we're all diehard fans. We're able to buy tickets now. We're able to afford these things. We're in our 30s. We've got jobs. We're not paying for college, things like that. So I do feel like personally, Jacksonville will always be a home to the Jaguars. Shad Khan has said many times how much he loves it here, the potential it has, things like that. I don't disagree with London. I do disagree with taking away too many of our games. Like 2 is a lot. Like 2 is it. And so this was the part that I was saying, I don't know if I could say this, but from what I was told, the revenue from Daly's Place, which is the amphitheater they built, all year long is the equivalent to revenue of one game. They have started doing so Shad Khan has they call it Khan Sports and Entertainment. They've also launched AEW, which we know, which they play at the stadium, or they have the matches at the stadium. And then on top of that, they have a concert series. So we had Rolling Stones. We're about to have like Green Day and Fall Out Boy, like the bigger names inside the stadium. And all of those concerts create the revenue of one game. With that, the Lot J project, which he wanted that major loan for, that got shut down by the city because they were like, no. If you're not going to agree to stay here like forever, we're not giving you a, no interest loan for all this time for you to, you can't give us this and not give us promises kind of deal. That was also supposed to wipe out where we didn't ever have to worry about London again. But here we are now. It got shut down. So do I think we'll be playing in London for a while? Absolutely. I think you'll see us in London. I just don't think logistically you'll ever see this franchise specifically move out of Jacksonville to London. If anything, I think you'll see an expansion in that, and there will be one in London. Actually, if you go on Google and you look up London NFL, there's a Wikipedia page for a 2025 London expansion team. A lot of people don't know that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the idea of moving a team from somewhere to come to over here. I just don't see how it works. Because the other thing is that we're all fans of teams already. So it's like, unless it's a brand new team, then maybe you'll start to get fans from that, that will follow that team. But for anyone like us who already follow a team, I mean, Freddie, you're not going to give up the Steelers for the Jaguars, are you? Just because they're in London?
Well, this is the thing is, I think this is what the US media maybe thinks about us in the UK is we're all like, we're desperate for a team. We want a team over here. No, I'd rather more games. We had 4 games at one point. Give us 6 games. Not all don't give us 2 or 3 Jacksonville Jaguars games. Give us 6 individual games throughout 6 weeks or maybe over 4 months. We'd be well happy with that. In fact, it's better, though we love it because when the 4 games have been on, it's every Sunday for 4 weeks, which sounds great, but they're £100+ days out. So if you spend so much money over 3 weeks. If anything, I'd rather 6 games and then spread them out over 4 months, 3 months, and I'd be a lot happier with that. There is a lot. I think it's a misconception, but we're over here. We all want that. We don't. Not all the NFL fans or NFL media do want it in the UK. There's so much scope here for it to grow, and I don't even mind. There's talk now that it's going to be moved into Europe, into Germany. There's going to be games. I'd be happy with that as well.
Why not just have a European league then at that point? I mean,
this is when that starts to happen.
I mean, what are you doing at that point? Because then you're moving even further. What are you gonna have China and it's actually tomorrow when the game's played, or yesterday, whatever, tomorrow. I get my time zones mixed up, but yeah, it's insane. And like you said, we get the same thing here. We had USA versus Scotland, right? It's completely sold out the whole stadium. No questions asked, like that. Boom, because it's something new. It's something exciting. And anybody that I've talked to that lives across the pond, they always say, nobody's here is Jaguars fans. We have Jaguars fans, but everybody here is Patriots fans, Cowboys fans, Steelers fans, the bigger market teams. They're not just Jaguars fans.
Yeah, and big market teams, not like the Giants and the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, when I watch the games, because we hold a brunch every year because it's 9 a.m. here when the games play. So we have, you know, omelets and mimosas and stuff. To be honest, I look at the crowd, I'm like, I don't see a bunch of teal.
Where
I don't know.
everyone's wearing different shirts, you know,
Yeah.
everyone's in a different jersey. It's like that's kind of almost half the appeal of the whole game. It's like
half the fun
get
is
to all the
looking at other
different
people's
teams.
jerseys. Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, it's something new and exciting. You know, it's not, if you guys had it all the time, you'd be like, whatever. But give us back our real football. Y'all are crazy about your football there.
Well, you heard it here first. Go on the Wikipedia page, go and look at the small print, look at the 2025 expansion London team that may or may not happen. We'll take Sam's word for it if it's on there. We'll go have to check it out. But thank you, Sam, for joining us on here. We've really enjoyed it. Where
Thank
can we
you,
find
guys.
your podcast and your stuff on social media and things?
So I am on Instagram and Twitter at Sammy Football with an I. And so it's Sammy, SAMMI football. And then also it's AFC South Fan Battle. And you can find us on Twitter at AFCSFB. Stands for AFC South Fan Battle. I really wish they would have made that. It's so hard to say. I hate it. But yes. But thank you guys for having me on. And I love the way you guys say Jaguars. I love it.
The Jaguars.
Awesome. Jaguars. I can't say it.
I'd love to say
it.
that we're like the posh people that say Jaguars, but we're really the more common. Common people say Jaguars. More upper class people say Jaguars.
Jaguars.
Is that more correct?
Yeah, that's why I say you guys added like a syllable. It sounds so fancy, you know. My friend from Scotland says because we're lazy. That's why. That's fine. I'll take it.
That's very fair. That's very fair. Well, thank you again, Sam, for joining us, and make sure all you Jacksonville Jaguars fans and AFC South fans as well go and check out the AFC South Fan Battle podcast.